Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds. Myself, Matt, and my one co-host, Tyler,
Hello.
provide our completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. Mark, again, these brony cons always conflicting with our Film Fraud schedule, but you know
Yeah.
where his loyalties lie, I guess
Yeah.
here.
Come on, Mark.
Yeah,
Commit
but
to us, not the
yeah,
bronies.
come on,
Yeah, come on, Mark.
we're cooler,
Yeah, we're
obviously.
cooler. Yeah.
But today we are in the mood to talk about movies. What movie are we talking about today?
That was actually that was pretty impressive. I was wondering to see where you do with that.
That hit me like right in the moment. I didn't even plan that.
I'm pretty impressed. So last week we talked about Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson's 2017 movie, and in this week we're going back in time, but only like 17 years, and we're talking about 2000s In the Mood for Love, directed by Wong-Kar Wai. And this is a fascinating movie to talk about. I would have loved to hear Mark's opinions on it, but again, those brony cons, they're just very high commitment.
Always, yeah. Now that everyone's vaccinated, it's just
Yeah.
like they're just hitting all the time.
They're going full force, yeah. So if you don't know what In the Mood for Love is, it is again directed by Wong-Kar Wai, who's arguably Hong Kong's most famous director. It came after a long run of his late 80s, early 90s movies, where he basically made a name for himself with Chungking Express, Fallen Angels, and Happy Together. This is following Happy Together. So this is his direct movie following that. And it's ultimately a story that takes place in kind of like 1960s British occupied Hong Kong. It stars two of the most famous Hong Kong actors at the time, Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung, I believe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Really, the story is just about their two couples who move in next to each other, and they find out their spouses are cheating with their other, like, each other. And man, I'm like butchering this.
With their respective spouses.
They respect their spouses, and ultimately, though, it's about they find out their spouses are cheating, and they ultimately form this connection, relationship, and we really explore it through this short period and decades, and it's this really fascinating and beautiful love story. If you don't already know anything about it, Wong Kar Wai, this movie is, I already said, directly following Happy Together, but it really kind of is what cemented Wong Kar Wai as this massive, massive, critical darling in apparatus. It was nominated for the Cannes Palme d'Or. It did not win, but Tony Leung ended up winning for Best Actor, which I think is the first Hong Kong or Asian American actor to win for Best Actor. Roger Ebert gave it a 3 out of 4 stars, which I want to talk about that shortly. And Matt, I ended up finding a list where BBC, you know the BBC, went and polled 177 movie critics around.
You know a lot about BBCs.
Film Frauds is retiring. We just peaked. They polled 177 movie critics across the world, and they basically polled for the best movies of the 21st century. This movie, In the Mood for Love, is ranked number 2. Matt, could you guess? Yeah, could you guess any of the movies in number like 1 through 5?
Wait, what was the list?
It was basically the best movies of the 21st century.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there is going to be a few that might surprise you in this, but everything 2000 and forward. Can you guess?
2000 and forward.
Yeah, I want to put you on the spot. Can you guess maybe like one or two?
What year was the list made?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
No Country for Old Men is probably on there.
It's number 10. It is not in the top 5.
Oh.
Yep.
You're
in the right realm for one of them.
So it's a Coen Brothers movie?
No, it's not a Coen Brothers movie.
Oh, There Will Be Blood.
Yep, There Will Be Blood is number 3. Yep.
Yeah, those came out the same year. Is it like The Matrix? No, it was 1999.
That was 99.
Have a hint. No.
You have seen number 1.
I have seen number 1.
Yes.
Do I like number 1?
Yes. I actually think you love number 1, if I remember correctly.
Okay. I'm really blanking.
It's a 2001. I'll give you the hint for number 1.
It's 2001 movie.
You're not going to get it. I don't think you're going to get it. Nope.
No.
Mulholland Drive.
Oh, really? Mulholland Drive is number 1.
Mulholland Drive is number 1. Number 5, Boyhood. Number 4, Spirited Away. Number 3, There Will Be Blood. Number 2, In the Mood for Love. And number 1, Mulholland Drive. No Country for Old Men's number 10. And then Matt, your love, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, number 6.
Wow.
So this is a really great list that you love.
List. What a god awful list.
But yeah, I mean, this movie is critically acclaimed. It's critically loved. It's arguably one of the greatest movies of the 21st century based on critics' review. Has a 4.4 in Letterboxd. I know that doesn't mean as much. It is. I personally love it.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what you think about it. I kind of butchered that first like initial synopsis and everything. I got
No,
a
it was
little
fine.
nervous.
I understood it because I
You
watched the
understood?
movie.
So Matt, I actually wanted to. You are probably the least familiar with Wong-Kar Wai out of like you,
Yeah.
Mark, and I. And you watched Chungking Express. Can you give me your quick synopsis on what you think about Chungking Express before?
So yeah, so I've only seen Chungking Express, and I watched a review for it recently, and I'm like by far the highest on Chungking Express.
Yep.
I really really enjoyed it, and it's a movie that like has stuck with me since I've seen it. Like it stuck with me for a long time, longer than most movies do. Even though I had problems, like there were some really clear problems with the movie, it really really lasted with me for a long time. So I was really excited to watch In the Mood for Love because I wanted to watch more Wong-Kar Wai. Um, and with that said, I think Chungking Express is a better movie than Mood for Love.
Okay.
As and I appreciated. I wanted to love Mood for Love,
Okay.
and there are a lot of elements that I respect about it, but I could not get into the story for my
Really?
life. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
I was very shocked watching it.
okay, so I have a lot of questions about this because this is definitely, I mean, you're looking at In the Mood for Love, and this is a movie also plagued by a long background of production disasters. It took 15 months to make. They were dealing with a lot of Hong Kong was occupied by Britain at the time, and then I think while the production of the movie was going on, or while as the ideas were kind of being created, China ended up not retaking Hong Kong, but ended up occupying Hong Kong. And I
Help
think
the
they
NBA.
yes, absolutely. And they've kind of done that forward. So there's this weird, like a lot of like distribution rights and a lot of production rights and censorship stuff going on. So Wong Kar Wai really had to navigate it. He's also known as a director who's kind of very flippant and loose and really has ideas, but is
Yeah.
often kind of free and he's kind of like, all right, shoot, go, which seems really surprising considering how meticulous this movie looks and feels. Wong
Yep.
Kar Wai has been pretty open. This movie is inspired by Hitchcock's Vertigo, which we know Hitchcock is a very meticulous director. It's ultimately a movie that it was ended up being shot by two cinematographers, Christopher Doyle and Kwang Pung Lung, I believe. Because the shoot went on for so long that I can't remember which one it was, but one of the cinematographers actually just had to step out. So I was looking at reviews for this movie, and there are a lot of critics who say they can pinpoint shots and moments in cinematography when they can feel like the cinematographers have switched. And I really can't. Honestly,
Oh, I can totally tell.
you can? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that because it was shot by two cinematographers. It's written by Wong Kar Wai. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies I've seen in a long time. I'm a big fan of visual storytelling, which makes sense within the medium of movies. But there's a lot of really great elements of conveying characters' emotional states and their relationships just through framing of shots and through movements of, say, their hands or placements of their hands. We can gain a lot of their emotional status at the time and where they are when there isn't a lot of dialogue at times in this movie, where characters often just longingly look at each other and just stare and then move forward. Matt, you were not the biggest fan of it. Can you tell me some stuff about it? What you think about it?
So as I said, I admired a lot about it. I think the acting is great.
Yeah.
I think that the cinematography is good in specific scenes. I can now that you said there are two cinematographers, like I can like pinpoint probably where the cinematographers changed because I think the lighting and the atmosphere really improve in the second half of the movie.
Yeah.
In my opinion, at least from my perspective.
Yeah.
It's just the story I could not really connect to, and I can't really exactly place why. Maybe it was just like the mood I was in last night when I watched it, but I was just really struggling with getting involved in it, which is surprising because I was so involved with Chungking Express.
Yeah.
I just thought like the relationship in Chungking Express was so much more developed and more fun to watch. Like this, like they're going for two different tones, obviously, but there's this disconnect with the plot for me where I just felt it was just so weird, like the concept of like this friendship, and I liked watching the friendship evolve in a certain way, but it just didn't really grasp me, and I found like some of the directing to be kind of boring compared to Chungking Express, like less inspired. Yeah.
Okay, I'm very fascinated by this because for me, what I like about Chungking Express and what I dislike about Chungking Express, and I want to say my dislike of Chungking Express is I just think the first story is not as interesting as the second one.
Like Chungking Express if I'm sorry, but like if like the
No,
whole second story was the movie, it probably would have been an A for me, like a
yeah,
5-star movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I could that, and that's kind of where I stand too. And this one, I mean, it's clearly going for a different thing. It's far more restrained, focusing on kind of keeping the camera still and kind of these. It's focusing heavily on cinematography. It's bright, vibrant red and blue colors that really stand out in contrast. I know this movie there was a color grading shift on the Criterion release, which I don't believe we watch. I believe we watched kind of the original one and the
I
color
watched an
grading.
HBO Max and it had the Criterion symbol
Yeah,
at the start of it.
so I believe we watched not the color corrected one.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I mean, a lot of this movie, what I love about it is stems from my what I love about these kind of slow burn movies is letting the camera sit and letting the characters act through the shot rather than the camera kind of moving with the actors. I'm a big fan of the movie Columbus that came out in 2017, and I feel like if you've seen that and know what kind of style Kogananda is going for in that movie, then you'll see why I probably really dug this one. A lot of slow pacing, slow build up, a lot of very intimate conversations, which I was very surprised at. But you also have to take consideration like cultural ramifications at the time. You're in 1960s Hong Kong. There's a lot of like commentary on the treatment of women, the treatment of women in relationships, the treatment of people in workforces. It's a very fascinating movie to me, not just to explore from the fact that it's incredibly well made, but just from a impact of historical context, which I believe Wong-Kar Wai is pretty open about. I didn't delve too much into interviews with him or anything like that, but he's pretty open with the fact that there's a lot of like internal machinations happening in front, like both behind and in front of the camera in terms of his own stances and ideologies of what's happening in the world. I mean, all directors do it, but this one he's worn more of on his sleeve.
Yeah.
Um, what did you really love about this movie, though? What like really stood out to you?
The lighting
The
and the
lighting.
atmosphere. That's like Chungking Express is like this weird like has like this weird like fantastical like glow to it, like especially in the scenes where Faye is in the police officer's apartment and like
Yep.
everything is weirdly bright and like neon. I love that stuff, and it's prevalent in scenes in this movie. I
Yep.
would say like that the red isn't really as prevalent in the start of it. Like when they're movie's kind of starting, it feels like feels more
Yep.
drab, and then like it kind of like picks up again like when there's that shot of like the guy
Yep.
and his like face is like covered in like yellow light. He's
Yep.
smoking a cigarette, and it's like dark red in the background, and like pans
Yep.
out, and like the girls there too. Like
Yep.
all this stuff was really good. He definitely has an eye for lighting and for things like that,
Yep.
but it wasn't really as prevalent as it was in Chunking Express. Like, I feel like Chunking Express has had that style more prevalent than in Mood for Love. There's some just very like drab and just kind of like generic scenes for me
Yep.
that I think was ultimately what kept me disconnected from it.
Yeah, I'm a massive so for me, like I watched this movie the first time. I've seen it twice, if I haven't been
Yeah,
clear about that already. And the first time I was watching it, I was blown away by a few different areas. And the fact it was a lot of the framing of shots. Wong Kar-wai has a very big focus on reflections and viewing characters through odd perspectives and odd angles, which I think I'm still kind of trying to piece together what that means. But there's a really interesting fascination here with viewing people from a distorted angle or something that's not direct, which I feel like goes in line with how a lot of this movie is, where the characters can't often be direct. We never really get a direct saying like where our spouses are cheating on each other, but you
yeah,
often get that really excellent scene where they're eating dinner for the first time and they're asking about the handbag and the tie,
yeah,
and they're like, "Where'd you get the handbag?" "Oh, my husband." "Oh, where'd you get the tie?" "Oh, that's funny. My husband has a tie just like it." "My wife just has a handbag like just like it." And you get that realization, because there's that slow buildup where he goes to pick up his wife, who tells him she's staying late, but she left early, and he starts to really suspect stuff, and it's just excellent buildup. But characters are never direct, and we're gonna end up spoiling this movie, so I guess spoilers from here on out. But the movie ends with characters never being able to express directly their
yeah,
emotions. And for me, watching this, oftentimes there are framings where characters are framed on the left, but there's a focus is on the middle. It's like this movie is very non-direct and non-focused on the actual stuff happening, which I find to be a very fascinating choice. And I wonder if that reflects more of the historical context of the time. But watching it, I kind of love this movie like a lot.
yeah.
Like I'm like really, this is by far my favorite Wong Kar Wai movie. I've seen so far, and honestly, it's not really even that close. And I've only seen Chung Express, Fallen Angels, and Happy Together. I've not seen some of his most recent stuff or some of his like two earlier movies. But there's something like magnetic about the visual storytelling and the way in which this story unfolds to me that I watch like mesmerized. Like,
I mean, I would definitely say that there are parts where I was really getting into it.
yeah,
The thing, like, I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons to Chunking Express because I
go for
kind
it.
of love that movie.
Yeah,
But the camera's so active in Chunking Express. Like, there's a lot of like handheld shots and
yeah,
things, and like there are some shots like especially within the apartment scenes where she's always like cleaning the apartment, doing things like they're so active. And like I'm watching this movie. I'm like, oh, this is how Tarantino is inspired. This is
yeah,
how the Safdie brothers were inspired. And like with this movie, like some of the shots were so like flat, which
yeah,
works for like which can work. And then maybe I just wasn't expecting. Maybe I just didn't know what I was going into. But there are just so many like flat shots.
yeah,
And I when I watched Wong-Kar Wai, I was expecting more like energy in the
yeah,
shots. And I guess it kind of works for this movie because it's more of like a dreary tone
yeah,
compared to Chungking Express. But it was just like a struggle to pay attention to,
yeah. I
especially
mean,
with the
yeah,
dialogue being so like it was purposefully kind of, again, it's purposely kind of dreary, it's purposely kind
yeah,
of like subdued because
yeah,
like they can't really vocalize how they're purposely not vocalizing how they're feeling. But
yeah,
it's like, oh, what would your husband order, what would your wife order,
yeah.
things like that. It didn't really connect with me, I think, as like the way that it was intended to.
That's completely understandable. And I mean, you often like it's kind of like that preparation if you watch Shooting Express. And I feel like you would really love Fallen Angels.
Would
I
you
mean,
say like would you say that his other movies are more directed like
Chunking
In the Mood for
Express,
Love, or more
yes.
like Chungking Express?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And that's why I am fascinated by In the Mood for Love. And it's weird. It's not weird, but unusual stylistic approach. Happy Together is probably a cross in between the middle.
Yeah.
But Fallen, so his other movie, Fallen Angels, was meant to be a third story within Chunking Express. So we ultimately there's meant to be a third story tied together, but the movie got too long and he ended up separating it into two and making his own movie. So if you love Chunking Express, I would heavily recommend you check out Fallen Angels. Maybe
Okay.
watch them back to back. Like I think it's that kind of like experience.
Yeah.
And this is why I think I'm so fascinated by this movie is because it feels so purposefully planned out and created, and the shots feel very like layered and interesting, and the cinematography and the framing, everything about it feels very meticulous, which is this interesting contrast between what we actually know about the production of the movie, which makes it even the more better that like even the better, not the more better, that I'm watching this and I'm like, this
Even
is
the more betterer.
even the more betterer, yes, even the more greater and betterer, that this movie came out like this. And I think a lot of it for me is just my personal taste in movies. And I mean, that comes down to everything. And like the expectations is you went in expecting like this, not frantic and kinetic movie, but instead you got kind of like a slow burn, like
Yeah.
romantic without a resolution almost. And
Yeah.
I wonder if you rewatch this, you might enjoy it a little more.
And
I
it's
don't know. What do
funny
you?
because we just watched Phantom Thread, which is a
Yeah.
slow burn, which is an hour long, which is almost an
Yeah.
hour longer,
Yeah.
which is like 30 minutes longer than In the Mood for Love. So it's just weird that this movie didn't really click with me as
Yeah.
much. But like I mean, like, you want to talk about like the performances a bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
found both actors are great.
Yeah.
He's like that. Chow was
Let's call him Mr. Chow.
Tony Leung
Yeah.
is a very prevalent actor. He's great in Chungking Express as well. He's great, and he's in the that action movie with Calgon Fat, the one I made you watch.
Oh, you didn't make me watch it. Oh my god. I'll find out about it. But I mean, he's like he's basically the Hong Kong actor.
Yes,
He's
and
incredible.
rightfully so, because he's
yeah.
great.
It wasn't hard boiled.
Hard boiled, yeah.
Yeah. He's like incredible. He's slowly becoming one, probably like the film frauds actor, like the actor.
Yeah.
It's that guy and the guy from Train to Busan.
Dad.
Yeah,
You gotta
the
watch
dad.
Outlaws.
Yeah, I gotta watch Outlaws. Yes. But he is just someone who he's slowly becoming my favorite actor. Like just
Yeah.
slowly, the more I watch him in, he's great in Infernal Affairs. If you ever watch it,
I gotta watch that. Yeah.
it's just he's one of those actors that brings a certain kind of he's this weird combination of vulnerability and gravitas, and it's a very hard thing to capture. Where you look at him and you're like, you have a presence, but you also like hide that presence to show vulnerability. Like there's really great sequences of him, like just his face where he realizes that his wife is probably cheating on him, and he just looks so like forlorn and not like heartbroken, but just like resigned to the fact that he's failing. And he has to figure out like ways to navigate it. And it's just there's something so amazing about it. Like, what do you think?
And also, like, like we said with the handmaiden, like you can tell the relationship's building without them saying like I love you or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you can tell based on how the two are just interacting with their body language or whatever,
Yeah.
that there's obviously feelings there, but they're suppressing them because they kind of have to.
Yeah.
Well, they choose to, but they also kind of have to at the same time. But all that stuff is great, and that's like what I look for in movies like this. Like I
Yeah.
don't like sappy movies. I like it when it's more subtle.
Yeah.
But which is kind of weird to call The Handmaiden a subtle movie.
Yeah.
It's very gratuitous in other
Yeah,
regards.
I was gonna say it's the furthest thing from a subtle movie. God damn. We're gonna
It's
talk.
subtle in the right way. Is what I'm
It's
trying to say. But
it's the furthest thing from a fucking subtle movie.
yeah. And all that stuff is great. And I think Maggie Chung is great as well. She's in a movie called Hero, which is a very well-reviewed movie, but I think it's not. But I don't think it's that good. But she's good in it.
Yeah.
And she's good in this movie as well. But it was just the slow burn element. I don't really mind slow burn movies. It's like a mystery as to why I didn't like this movie.
Yeah.
Or why I didn't connect with the movie as much as I should have. Because I've done nothing but really compliment the movie since we've done this review.
I'm really fascinated by the fact that you're kind of like lukewarm about it. I was
maybe it's just the mood. Like maybe maybe I wasn't in the mood for love.
Oh my god.
Yes, we did it, ladies and gentlemen. But like all the performances are great, top to bottom. I really liked like her relationship with her boss. It felt very like realistic.
Yeah.
And I like the bald friend of Tony of Tony.
Yeah.
He was like a pretty funny character. And like the relationship worked with me to a certain extent. Maybe the chemistry didn't quite click with me. I would say, but like, I mean, again, they're purposefully acting reserved because I have to.
Yeah.
So like that also contributes to it as well. But I would say like maybe I had a tough time buying into like the center relationship.
Yeah, and I really wonder if this is real quick before I get to that is I'm a big fan of, and it's really difficult to do in movies because movies often you have to have this propelling narrative device, something that keeps the pace of the movie going, and oftentimes we sacrifice that pace for characters not spending like time together to buy the relationship. But in this movie, you often just get like brief scenes and sequences of them just spending time together, like being in the same room, just doing basic stuff that is not this over dramatized, announcement of love. And for me, that's what makes this very believable is the idea of like, I'm watching it and like, they spend time together. Like, this is believable. I understand that like they're brought together by this shared kind of connection. And there's like these brief sequences of them going through the rented hotel room and like her just lying on the bed and him just writing. It's just, to me, it's like, that's what I look for when I look for these movies is like real, genuine, actual, like human, like creations and human representations of people. And that's really hard to do in movies because you have to be cinematic and you have to keep this propelling narrative device going. I find that stuff fascinating. I also know that I am really like, do you remember the first time that we ever watched Blade Runner? We watched it in college together. Yeah, the first Blade Runner. And because I had never seen it, and this is a little bit story time because Matt and I were in college. We're amazing. We graduated. Go us. We graduated a year ago. Holy shit. But you warned me. We're about to watch Blade Runner because we wanted to go see Blade Runner 2049 that night. I was like, I haven't seen it. You got to watch it. And you're like, Tyler, just know going into this, it's not what you expect. It's a slow movie. It's not like an action thing. And I went, okay, I know what to expect. And I fucking love Blade Runner because of that. I wonder if I had prepped you a little bit more going, don't expect Chunking Express. You might have been able to temper your expectations and might have ended up liking it.
Yeah, it's funny because like that was the second time I watched Blade Runner, and the first time I watched it, I didn't like it. And then, we're watching that day, I was like, this movie is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, knowing what it's like going into it, I think would help too.
Yeah.
And I actually rewatched Blade Runner last month, and I still love it. It's a great movie. And I think knowing what to expect going into it would help as well. I would say though that there are elements that I would say I think I would have. I don't think regardless of how many times I watch a movie, I think that there are some parts of the relationship I didn't like quite buy into, like regardless of how slow the movie was.
Yeah.
It didn't like quite click with me, like their chemistry or whatever, even though I think that both performances are really good.
Yeah.
And I like the scenes they have together. It never really justified being like the center of the movie, of the plot for me.
Yeah, I listen, I understand. Like this is one of those movies, and this is how I felt for really all of Wong-Kar Wai movies, which this is why I'm very fascinated by him as a director, is the fact that his movies are either like, if someone doesn't like it, I'm like, you know what, I understand.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, this movie feels like it's for a certain type of people. And this is why I also want to talk about kind of like serving as a recommendation for people to get into classic movies. Do you think Wong-Kar Wai would be a good entry for people to get into either like foreign cinema or cinema that's non-standard? Because I know for us, and a little transparency is that before we did this podcast, before you and I really got into movies, I'd never heard of Wong-Kar Wai. Like
Yeah.
I never heard of him before. I did not know this director existed. I had heard of Chungking Express in passing, but that's about it. Would you think Wong-Kar Wai could be a good introduction for people to get into this
Well, I
kind of
mean, out of the
stuff?
two movies I've seen, I would say Chungking Express could potentially be one because they're such clear, because famous directors like Tarantino are so clearly inspired by
Yeah.
his stuff that I would say, maybe. But then again, like Chungking Express has like two different stories in it.
Yep.
Like I say, people not being into it. I don't know. It's tough to say because I didn't particularly like Into It for Love either. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with no for someone who's just getting into classics or international movies.
Okay. You expect a little bit of build up. Okay. I'm fascinated by this, and I'm curious to see if like what anyone else thinks on this kind of stuff. Like, hey, is this like a good director to get into? I do want to talk about the score. Because the score in this movie is excellent. It's phenomenal. And it has that repeating beat that plays over and over
Yeah,
again.
it's a waltz.
Yep, similar to Chunking Express, where it plays the California Dreamin' over and over again.
There's a comment on Letterboxd for a review for Chungking Express.
Yeah.
It's like Wong Kar Wai plays California Dream for the 20th time.
Yeah.
Please, sir, can I have some more?
Yeah, that's how you feel. You're like,
So
oh my
just
god.
keep playing it, but it's always impactful every time you hear it.
Yep, that's what, and for me, I get that same feeling with that
Yeah.
slow kind of score, and it's not mixed. There's like an actual kind of like actual songs overlaid to kind of like classic love songs.
Yeah, there's songs like in the reality of the movie.
Yeah,
Where it's like they're listening to the radio or whatever, and there's music playing. But yeah,
yep.
there's like that waltz score that is like consistent throughout it, and I
Yeah.
really like that music.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by Wong-Kar Wai's use of also like not repetitive scenes, but repeating motions. You often get a lot of times the characters passing one each other through the rain as they walk through that like noodle. They go down to the noodle shop.
Yeah.
There's like 4 or 5 sequences of them like slowly passing through each other's lives, and I imagine that's tied to ultimately the theme of the movie and the fact that like sometimes like love does not ultimately like you cross paths once and that's it. And
Yeah.
like I wonder if that's kind of like representative of that. But then again, I mean, you look at this and then you look at how tumultuous the production was, and it's amazing to me that this movie turned out the way that it did.
Yeah.
And I'm just compelled to research more about the production of this. Because it's just, to me, I look at this and I look at like the fact that it feels very like Kubrick or Fincher-esque. We're very meticulous, very specific framing and sequences and movements of the characters like a Kubrick or Fincher. And you're looking at it, but then you find out he's like, you'll just do whatever you want. Like, you'll figure it out, kind of stuff like that. And you're like, holy shit, how did this work? How did we do this? I'm fascinated by this movie.
It reminds me of PTA, where it's like you expect one thing from the movies he makes, but then you like talk to the guy and he's like, oh, I thought this was cool.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, I just shot it. It's like, I don't know, it interested me.
Yeah.
Like, I thought about it briefly.
Yeah.
And
I like this angle. Yeah. I just tried it.
There's
like,
definitely something like seamless about the directing where it just feels like it's like when you look at like a Tarantino movie, like it just feels like there's like a mixture of like fun but also talent too.
Yep.
Where it's like second nature for them to like, it's like effortless to make this, like these like excellently directed shots.
Yeah. Do you think so? I am fast. I think the performances are excellent. I think the directing's excellent, cinematography, score. I'm all in on this movie. I'll die for this movie. And like it's an interesting, because I told you before, I'm like, I'm not really equipped for a fight. And it doesn't really seem like you dislike it. It just seems like it's one of those movies that you're just not as impressed by, I think.
Yeah, it's like watched it and I like finished it and I like forgot that I had seen it like 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
I'm like, did I just forget I watched a Wong-Kar Wai movie?
Yeah.
You know? Just very like ambivalent. It's just a movie that I can't really decide upon yet. It's a movie that I feel like I need to watch again.
Yeah.
Like in a better mood.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel like justified to talk. Like I don't realize people who's like not afraid to have like controversial point or anything.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just there's just this disconnect that I can't really describe.
Yeah.
I think it comes from the plot, and that me just not particularly buying into this relationship that is going on screen.
Yeah.
But again, like pretty much every other element of the movie I enjoyed. Like, you know, the directing, cinematography, acting, everything was really good.
Yeah.
Just the central, the core relationship was just not quite there for me, and not quite where they'd be in the center of the plot.
Okay. I like it, Matt, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff we could talk about. But I also feel like a lot of this movie's impacted by historical context that I don't have the requisite research and knowledge of that. But
you have the history book, Tyler.
But I have the history book, Matt. You're right. Matt, because we have abolished our grading scale. If anyone didn't know about that, the A, B, C, D, F is really limiting, and I think it was kind of hurting us in the long run because I gave the fucking Marine a B, and that killed like me right off the start. Matt, we have changed. What grading system have we changed to?
We just say, do we like it or not?
Yeah, is it worth your time? Is it worth your time to watch this?
Time?
Is this movie worth your time to watch?
I would say it's worth your time to watch.
Yes.
If you like international films, if you like, auteur-driven films, I would say go for it.
Yeah.
It's only an hour and 38 minutes too, so it's not like it's going to take up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
I think the movie, despite the fact that I do not particularly like it, I think it's still worth watching.
Yeah.
Because again, it's the second highest rated movie on the whatever that Hackles top 2000.
The BBC polling 177 critics. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't take my word for
it. You're just behind critic number 178. You brought it down to number 4.
Yeah.
For me, unequivocally, this movie is. The more I watch it, and I honestly feel like checking it out again. The more I watch it, the more I'm just impressed by this movie. From a technical to a directing, from the behind the scenes, from an acting, from a score perspective, to a cinematography, to a framing, to everything. This movie to me is near perfect. Like I really watch this, and I'm like, wow. This movie is above and beyond the rest that I've seen. It's my favorite Wong-Kar Wai movie that I've seen. Again, this is only my 4th one. I still have a few to check out. But watch this one. I agree with you, Matt, that if you're a fan of international cinema, if you're a fan of auteur indie-ish kind of movies and the creations of that, then absolutely go check it out. I think this is available on HBO Max and Criterion, if you haven't known that already. I think the movie Love is spectacular. I think there's something really, really genuinely special about it. And I really am curious to see what you think about it on a rewatch. Matt, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what I think of his other movies now.
Yeah.
Especially Fallen Angels in 2046.
Yeah.
Oh, did you notice that his apartment number is 2046?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, that's his other movie. So yeah, that's going to be it for us.
The Wong-Kar Wai cinematic universe.
This movie is technically part of an unofficial trilogy between Days something. Hold on. It is an official trilogy between Days of Being Wild, In the Mood for Love, and 2046. I think because I think it's similar actors in all the movies, if I'm mistaken. But yeah, Matt, do you know what our next movie is going to be?
No.
It's going to be The Handmaiden.
Yes, The Handmaiden.
Yeah, Handmaiden. So we're actually coming back.
The movie that got us started.
Hopefully Mark will be there for it.
Yeah.
Because we want him to join the movie. Mark's computer, I think, just broke. That's why he's not here with us today. One of the bronies sat on it. So that's why. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already, check us out on YouTube if you're watching it there. But we're also on Spotify, Apple, all the podcast stuff that you can find us there. Also, go check out our individual channels. Matt, what's your individual channel?
It's BronyTube. It's Matt's Bookshelf.
Matt's Bookshelf, excellent. And mine is Colors Wonderland, which is an excellent name. And you haters just don't appreciate it. All right, Matt, any final comments before we go? No. Could have something witty, could have insulted me, could have just made fun of me, just flat out no.
Not in the mood. Not in the mood for Tyler.
Ending it there. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back next week for The Handmaiden. All right, guys. Have a nice day. Bye.